All right. Look at that. We are live.
Are
Live
we?
and then I don't know. I was
Uh-oh.
trying to find something that rhymes with live and I completely whiffed.
You were trying to find something that rhymes with live?
Yeah, I was going to say live and whatever,
Live in
but
your beehive?
wow.
No,
Yeah. Let me just,
it rhymes. It
I'm just going to roll the
rhymes.
intro. I'm just going to roll the
Okay.
intro.
Shut up and sit down.
Hey, what is up, everybody?
Right.
Welcome to Dope and Dharma. As always, this is I'm Dope and Dharma. I'm Dharma guy. He's the Dope Doctor, and together we are Dope and Dharma. And this would be the Dharma Time hour, the Dharma
Mm-hmm.
Time session. What do we call this?
Edition.
Edition. There we go. It is technically written right in front of me, so you'd think I would have gotten that one, but
You would have
I
thought.
digress. Right. Well, at the moment, we are live. It is Tuesday for us, a little after 1 o'clock.
Eastern
If
Standard
any,
Time.
well, look at you being really specific.
Well, I
Um,
mean, there's people in Germany watching, bro. It's not one
yeah,
o'clock for
yeah,
them.
yeah. Apparently, we're big in like India, Germany, Thailand,
Yeah. Yeah.
Norway started catching up to it too. So, my
It's that
people.
Viking look you have. That's
That's
what it
right.
is.
It's my people, man.
It is.
Anyways, we are currently live. If you're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So if you're on one of those platforms watching live, feel free to make a comment or ask a question
Mhm.
while we're doing this. We'd be more than happy to respond to you.
Right.
And then also last night, for those of you who watched this, we were on our local station, 1680 on WOKB, and then 100.7 FM, I think it is.
That's right.
Yeah, we do the Couch Live on Mondays. So if you're local, you can check it out on those stations, or you can watch on any of the following platforms. And if you're listening to this on a podcast, if you're listening through Dharma Time, but you'd like to hear more of what we cover, you can follow us on your same podcasting app through Dope and Dharma. And you can hear us talk about the Couch Live. We can talk about We the Middle, the morning after. We covered a wide array of topics. So if you'd like to hear more than just this type of stuff, by all means. Anyways,
Right.
how's your day, man? We haven't talked yet today. Just
How?
full disclosure.
Yeah, man. I've been in some good meetings, man, and to be honest with you, I had to break away from them. I mean, they're still meeting upstairs, but it's good stuff going on over here at the studio. So, real
Uh-huh.
good. What was I going to say? So how are people watching this right now? So YouTube Live, they're watching it Facebook Live, Twitch, and all that stuff right now, right? So if they want to
Correct.
ask a question, you guys can just ask the question. I think Trinity and I can see it if you ask through one of those channels, stuff
Yes,
like that.
sir.
Uh, so anyway, yeah, I'm doing really good. You know, we have a new little puppy, and our youngest is back home for the summer from college. So you put a little puppy and a little one, and so we watched movies until pretty late last night. Just like the old days, me, Dana, and Zoe in the bed watching movies till about 1 a.m. And then at 5 a.m., the little puppy says, "Hey, remember me? I'd like to go
It's
out."
time to get to the
And
bathroom.
and even though our little one Zoe is the one that adopted the dog and brought the dog to the house, she was sleeping and she didn't really want to get up this morning. So Daddy does it. I'm not only a girl dad, I'm a dog dad.
Isn't that
So
how that goes, though?
I'm
Is the
tired today.
kids want it and we end up taking care of it? Because,
Yeah,
yeah,
even when they're adults.
I deal with that same thing in my house, man. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay.
As usual, we're going to talk about some spirituality here and some just life topics. I think.
All right.
Now, this is something that
Okay.
I don't know, man. I've heard a lot. Like, I don't know how much you've heard about it or
Okay.
things in reference to it. Maybe not labeled this specific thing, but I don't know, man. I struggle with this one, man. Because I don't know if I really encounter it much, but then if I
You
really
got me
think
all
hard,
curious.
I do kind of encounter it, but not really, not as much as I
Okay.
hear from others. So it's called imposter syndrome, right? I think there's a
Ah,
multitude of ways to describe it, but we're going to stick with imposter syndrome just for this show, I guess.
okay.
So essentially, if you're not aware of what that is, imposter syndrome, kind of in a nutshell, is this idea that you're receiving rewards or accolades or acknowledgement not because of your skill set. In other words, you don't deserve it. You're getting it because you're just kind of lucky and it's happening. And at any given moment, those same people are going to realize that you're a fraud and you don't necessarily deserve all those things. I don't know, man. I struggle with this one. Like, my problem was always
Well, because
feeling
you're an imposter.
right. Well,
I'm
my problem
kidding.
was always kind of feeling maybe a little too cocky when I was younger. Right. I was very confident.
Okay.
Like I said, I was that kid in school, had the 4.0. I had I did have a lot of luck, but like for me, first of all, I appreciated the luck, but I also took those situations that I was lucky to get and I ran with them and I used them for all I could. And so I didn't look at luck as like a bad thing, right? I didn't look at it was either or. I didn't look at it as either you're lucky or you're good. I figured I was good and I was lucky. And so I didn't struggle too much with those. However, in doing the copious amounts of research we do for these shows, I did come across a graphic that I did think was interesting. It kind of started to change my mind a little bit. So apparently there's different.
graphic.
I don't know if I can pull it up or not.
Oh.
But there are different kinds of imposters. It's not a good quality one. I found it briefly and I stole it from some other website. So, but I didn't know this until I found it, and it was different types of imposter syndrome. Right? There are 5 different types. I'm gonna read them briefly just so we can kind of kick this thing off. First one is superhero, and it says overwork themselves to make up for how inadequate they feel. So basically, I don't feel like I'm unworthy, so I'm going to just work as hard as I can to kind of cover up any deficiencies I might have. The next one is natural genius. Set exceedingly high goals, feels crushed when they don't meet them. I absolutely am guilty of that. The next one is expert. Never satisfied with their level of understanding, always trying to learn more. I definitely feel I'm guilty of that at times. Perfectionist. Never completely happy with their work. Fixated on flaws instead of strengths. I might have been guilty of that at some point for sure. And then soloist. Prefer to work alone, won't ask for help for fear of appearing weak or incompetent. That one I haven't really struggled much with, personally.
And these are all examples of imposter syndrome. These sound like basic personality types of
exactly.
workers.
Well, that's what I was thinking in my head. I was like, well, wait a minute, man. Like, my initial definition when I looked up what the actual verbiage is of imposter, I didn't necessarily relate right away. But then when I dug deeper into it and found out that those are different, types of it, I was like, well, wait a minute. Like I relate to a lot of those.
I
but
I'm calling bullshit.
It feels like if you have some of those, it's one thing, but if it's overpowering you, that's another thing. And so I'm going to lean into the idea that imposter syndrome is when those things are such a burden to you that they're stressing you out and causing anxiety and things of that nature. I'm going to say that that's probably what it is. In other words, something normal that we all kind of have bits of, but to at a level where it doesn't feel normal anymore. Right.
Right.
Is that your assessment as well? Are we even on that one?
We're even in your assessment, not necessarily their assessment. The way I've always discussed it and the way I always help people process through imposter syndrome in counseling is they have a lower value of themselves. There's a level of insecurity based on some of those traits, and maybe that's where their insecurity came from, whether, they had one of these other personality traits or thought processes. So in treatment of this, it's typically because they have an impending sense of doom, that it's all going to come crumbling down, that they're going to be found out. The people are going to realize that maybe they're not as smart as they're being told they are, or not as worthy as they're being told that they are, or they're not deserving of the fees or the pay or the accolades they're getting, and then it further damages their self-esteem. Instead of improving their self-esteem through these accolades or through these achievements, it's actually hurting their self-esteem because, again, they don't feel as valued. Now, those things that you mentioned to me are more like coping mechanisms because of the imposter syndrome. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like that's ways that they cope out of the imposter syndrome, whether they work extra hard or whether they try to rely on their intelligence or try to rely on their expertise or their time put in. These seem like ways of trying to work through it and out of it. But realistically, the only real way to work through an imposter syndrome is to truly know the value that you do have, feel comfortable in that space. And if somebody wants to overpay you or over accolade you, that's on them. If they put you on a pedestal, that's not your doing. You first of all, you can't put yourself on a pedestal. You may think you can, and you may think someone else is doing that to themselves, but they're not. The only reason someone's on a pedestal is because someone placed them there. Nobody has the power to place themselves on a pedestal. They only have the power to manipulate you and convince you that they should be on that pedestal, but that's still on you, right? So
Yeah.
if you're out there and people have put you on a pedestal, and put you at a higher place of purpose than you feel like you deserve, that's on them. And maybe you belong there for them. Maybe they get something out of you that you didn't know that you actually had. I didn't necessarily ever really feel imposter syndrome, other than the fact that when I first got involved in this business, we're talking in the early 90s, where people started viewing me as an expert real early on. And it's just because the way I was phrasing what I was talking about. A lot of
Right.
people in this industry of, first of all, for those of you that don't know, I'm in the substance use disorder treatment industry since 1991. And when I first got in, and not only did I not have the education level, but I didn't have the experience. But what it was is I had the ability to kind of take an ideology or a thought process and just word it differently. I'm a street kind of guy, so I worded it in my street knowledge way. And when I did that, pretty quickly, the physicians that I was working around started saying that clients liked me and they related to me really well, and they started questioning, how is it that I knew this information? Why is it that clients are relating to you? And so I started thinking, they're going to realize that my imposter syndrome was that I was really one of them. You know what I mean? I really had these problems
Right.
myself, which is how I knew this stuff, because school didn't really teach me jack. Sorry, UCF, even though my daughter just graduated UCF this weekend. UCF, you didn't really teach me much about this. I mean, you taught me some rules and regs, basically. You may have taught me some historical knowledge of where counseling or therapy came from, but you did not prepare me for the world of helping and treating others. That came through actually working and helping and treating others. Clients taught me a lot more of how to help clients, if you're aware enough. And the street taught me a lot more about the disease of addiction and the problems and the complications that go with substance abuse, that go with behavioral issues, that go with mental health issues. And all college did is put a name on it. I mean, that's what colleges were good for. That's what universities
Right.
were good for. They were good at putting a name or an identification
And charging
on
you for it.
a problem and charging me a lot of money for it. Well, not me. My mother
Yeah.
paid for my college. Thank you very much, Mom. But they were good at identifying these problems, but not necessarily treating it. It didn't seem like everything was called a theory, by the way. Everything in psychology was a theory.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
Still
well, if it's
is.
a theory, then what's the truth? It still is. So what's the truth here? But that's my understanding of treatment of imposter syndrome, is helping people be okay with the placement of who you are on other people, and not just the good, but the bad as well. So if somebody says you suck, and if enough people say it, then maybe you do suck. But
Right.
if it's somebody that you really wanted to embrace you or to appreciate you and they don't, well, you can't really change that person. I mean, sometimes you're around somebody who likes to poo-poo on everything, and if that's them, that's on them. So on the other side of the coin of imposter syndrome is you never can please them syndrome. Right?
Yeah.
You
Well,
have some
that's the whole
people you
point
just
of
can't.
well, that's the whole point. It's never personal, right? Like that's the whole idea behind it's never personal. It might feel personal
It
to
can
you, but at
be,
the end of the day, it's just more
yeah,
about where they're at.
but and the only reason I say
Well,
it can be is because I've disliked people based on a personal thing, not based on anything other than personal. Have you ever
um,
disliked somebody for personal reasons?
um, yeah, I get what you're saying, but from
I
a
have.
philosophical or from a spiritual standpoint, even the act of
Right.
not liking that particular thing and or having a disagreement with the way they look at something and then causing that to no longer like them,
Mhm.
that's the way you deal with not liking a personality characteristic. They're
Mhm.
not necessarily wrong for having that characteristic. They're where they're supposed to be at in their journey. And for us to dislike them for that, it says more about where we're at on our journey and less about them. That's kind of what I mean by nothing's
Sure.
personal. I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
we take things personal for sure, but it doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily mean it's personal. So
Well, I'm glad
I
that
think
some people sometimes take it personal because I meant it 100% personal to you. If I did it to you personally,
sure,
I meant it 100%. Now, I may apologize later because apparently, according to Trinity, I've advanced in my journey and my path, and therefore I'm a lot more
sure,
loving. But when I did tell you what I told you, I 100% meant it.
sure. Well, that doesn't mean you don't mean what you said. It just means that where you were at on
Right.
your journey, that was what thought was the
Right.
right thing to say, I guess. I
Yeah.
I kind of I kind of can relate a little bit to what you were saying. And
Mm.
you'll probably remember this conversation. This was, God, I
Right.
don't even remember how many years ago it was now. So I was a fitness guy. That's all I did. And then, but for me personally, growing up in a Christian home, and then having a point inevitably in my life where that no longer kind of answered my questions for me. It was no longer doing it. So then atheism is just kind of where I fell into, right? And atheism isn't a belief, it's the lack thereof, right? I just don't have faith in something. I need to see
Right.
it. Um, and that's where I sat for years. And the problem with my atheist is it almost turned into like an anti-theist in the sense of I wasn't just atheist, I was actually anti-religion. I had a really tough time accepting people who were religious.
Mm.
And then I stumbled across, a moment in my life where I was teachable, and I looked around, I was like, yo, this sucks. Like, there's got to be something out there. And it was my tattoo artist that turned me on to Buddhism. And so, I don't know, I just intellectually really, it spoke to me, and I started applying it, and it kind of changed everything for me in a huge life altering kind of way. And that's where I left it. Like, that was just
Okay.
my thing. That was my journey. That's what I did. And so I started doing the fitness stuff with you at the treatment facilities, and was doing well at
Mhm.
it. I mean, that was my knack. That was what my at the time my calling was. I was helping people do things, and then
Right.
you came to me. You came to me one day. It was like a phone call, I think. It's either a phone or a text. And you're like, "Hey, yeah, I want you to start teaching spirituality at the center." I was like, "Wait, what? What? Like, I'm not that dude. Like, it never. That was just never part of my walk. I was no." And then you're like, "Yeah, you are.
Mhm.
You do it all the time. You in the Buddhism." I was like, "Yeah, but that's for me. Like, I don't really teach it." And he's like, yeah, it's the same thing. You just talk about your journey and what you did. And so I guess uh, it- by the letter of the law, I could call that imposter syndrome in the sense of I didn't view myself as a spiritual teacher, but I didn't let that
Right.
hold me back. I was like, okay, well, let me give it a shot and see
Right.
what happens. With fully knowing that at any given moment I can be like, look, dude, this isn't working, And then I started doing it, and I realized I did have a knack for it. I did connect
Right.
with a lot of people, and for the same reasons was I wasn't this dude who was spiritual my entire life and was like honed into this. No, I was like a rebel. I was a problem child. I was into a lot of things I shouldn't have. And then I learned that, hey, there's a better way. And that's
Mm.
where I come from when I talk to people. And I think that's why for a
Right.
lot of people it's relatable for that very same reason.
Mhm.
Having said that, I also would never present myself as like a full-fledged monk or something either, right? There's a lot of people out there who can tell you all the ins and outs when it comes to any spirituality, but more specifically as it pertains to me. There's a
Right.
lot of people who've read like the Pali Canon or parts of it who can spout out like the Sangha and all these very I don't the jargon of the Buddhist
Yeah.
philosophy, right? All
Yeah.
the
What I call the
terminology.
psychobabble in my business. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't personally have an interest in that. I'm not that guy. So I don't consider it imposter syndrome. I just say, look, man, I'm a very niche. I turn it into like just real world talk. I try to turn
Right.
all this highfalutin stuff into just two guys hanging out or two people hanging out discussing how to, be happier in life. And so if you're looking
And I knew you
for
could do that.
yeah, if you're looking for the guy who can sit here and quote Paulie Kanon, well, I'm not that dude. I can point you in the
Mhm.
direction of some people who are very good at that. But I also think I could do something that a lot of those people couldn't do. Is I could break it down into real
Mhm.
street kind of like mentality. And so I think
Mhm.
that part of addressing or dealing with imposter scenarios is understanding what lane you're in.
Right.
Don't compare your lane to somebody else's lane
Right.
because
Right.
they can't do your lane any more than you can do theirs. And so if you start to compare, you're always going to find somebody better at whatever it is you think you should be good at, no matter what it is.
Right.
Unless, of course, maybe you're Michael Jordan. Like, I don't know, but because I think he's the greatest, by the way. Um, so yeah, I think that comparison is dangerous, and I think that's what that's not a it's not a helpful thing. It's not going to help you in your journey at all if you're dealing with those things.
Right.
But I think in that sense, I did originally taste a little bit of imposter, but I was like, man, I'll roll with it and see what
Right.
happens. So
Yeah, I could see that. But see,
that was the
that's where
birth
you
of the
had
Dharma guy,
to.
by the way.
That was. You
I said,
had to
yeah,
realize and come very quickly that this older gentleman, me, saw something in you that you weren't yet seeing in yourself.
right,
It's no different than someone out there that may be currently going through imposter syndrome. Somebody saw something in you that was potential. You were already, when we would get in personal conversations, you would already say things to me within our conversations and relate it back to your spiritual beliefs that I felt were good enough to sit in a room of people that were on a path of self discovery. And I thought it could be useful. And your ability to say that I'm not an expert, but this is just what I do and how I think, that's what made it perfect. What made it perfect is you didn't come off as, hey, I'm better than you. I know more than you. I'm more educated than you. You didn't have that vibe and energy, which is,
right.
I always found that attractive in people that I've hired for, whether it be, an outpatient facility I had or a residential facility I had. I'm drawn to those kind of individuals that just do their deal, man. And you know what I mean? If you like what we got to say, you like it. If you don't, I get it. It's no big deal. Go try your path. At the end of the day, you know where I'm at. I'm always on
Right.
this path. So if you need it, want it, or should appreciate, want to appreciate it and want to benefit from this relationship, you know where we're at. And so you presented that. And so I thought you would be valuable. And then that parlayed into you then going at, the juvenile justice program contract that I had to go speak to the younger generation. Because again,
Yeah.
you didn't come from a point of, I know it all, I'm better than you, I'm an authority figure. And therefore I knew that those younger kids were going to benefit from you just being you. And they did, and they enjoyed you and they liked you. And I remember one time they even gave you a standing ovation, and I know how much that meant to
Which
you.
blew my mind.
And right, because these kids didn't want what we had to offer, so you can't
No,
come at them, thinking you're offering them anything other than, you're just, having a conversation with them about a very something they didn't want to talk about, which is their
nope.
behavior, their use, and how to move forward in their life. And look, Trinity, I told you that the way I got here is I just wanted everybody to shut up. I mean, the way I got to self-discovery in my own self is I just really wanted the world to shut up. I didn't want to hear anyone else's opinions. I was tired of hearing everybody tell me that I had to shut up, sit down, not talk. That's why our show Dope and Dharma starts off with shut up, sit down, because Trinity found it one day. And what he didn't know is that was what I was told all my life. Shut up, sit down. So I threw away the Couch Lives intro for shut up and sit down because that fit.
Right.
I had
Yeah.
that other intro for what, 23 years?
Yeah.
So we've incorporated as Dope and Dharma because you've turned into the Dharma guy that I saw within you before you saw it within your own self, Trinity. So yeah, I could see that you had imposter syndrome initially, but hopefully now you view yourself as the person I view you as, which is someone that when we talk about a variety of issues, you feel competent enough to talk about those things from your perspective. You're not saying you're the best at that or the only
No.
perspective, but it's your perspective, and that's all you can be asked to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was the thing, was in the very, very beginning when you first mentioned it to me, Marissa said nobody can tell her to sit down. For those of you who don't know about Marissa, it's because she's in a wheelchair. So, yeah, I think for me, like I said, that was the comparison. When I was trying to compare myself to like these, like the Dalai Lamas of the world, like these really high, quote unquote prestigious positions. Well, no,
Right.
I don't compare to that dude, but
Right.
I wasn't trying to be him, and nor were you
Right.
or anybody else asking me to be him.
Right.
And I think that's where
Right.
the imposters start to come in.
And
Well, go ahead.
right. Well, I was going to say no different in my field where, I had reached some level of education, but I didn't continue on. I didn't go get that doctoral level, and stuff like that. So that always, I always thought that's what you had to go get, right? You had to get the master's, you had to get the doctorate, you had to become the real doctor. But because I come into the world of substance use disorders as, like I said, a street dude, I was the dope man. So it made sense to go from the dope man to the dope doctor because I had street knowledge. And that street knowledge really helped people understand that you can continue going where you're going and you can keep paying the dope man, but the dope man don't give a damn about you. and you know that. But pretty soon you start acting like you don't give a damn about you. And if you're acting like you don't give a damn about you, then what do you care what people think about you? So what your parents think that then? So what your boss thinks that? So what you're saying, if you don't care about you, but you care what we think about you, oh, brother, you got to think about that. So we had basic conversations, and then was able to use the stuff that was in place, or the strategies that were out there and in place to get better or to process through information. Then I hand you off to those kinds of professionals that can further develop you or further process that information. So I don't need to have all of the answers. All I need to help you get is that your way is not working, and maybe you could be open to looking for another way. And so the dope doctor became what he became. Why? Because I was on regular radio just as a regular jock, and then doing, counseling and stuff on the side. I thought the side. I didn't know that was going to be my main gig. I thought I was going to be an entertainer for the rest of my life, until Orange County approached me and says, "We want the Couch Live. We want you in the Couch Live as a show, and can you just do that?" And so it was all right.
Right.
I'll do that, but really don't want to just be talking about recovery,
Yeah.
because I'm not going to go back to getting high. I was going to go back to partying. I had no
Right.
idea that this life was going to be so joyous and so full, so overwhelmingly, I guess, nutritious. And it just
Fulfilling.
was. It gave me so many nutrients. Yeah, it just gave me
Sure.
all these nutrients within me that was starving, that I didn't know was starving. It fed my soul. It fed my brain. It fed my heart. It fed everything about me. And I just did not know that I was starving. I really thought I was filled. You know how when people come to you, when you talk about faith or you talk about religion, they go, "Well, you're lost. You're not found, right? Like,
Right.
or you're
Right.
certain." I'm not looking. I'm not searching. I'm not lost. I know exactly where I'm at. Well, it's because sometimes they see something in you that appears lost, because by your behavior, by your actions, or by your words, you appear to be searching, and maybe you're not even admitting that you're searching. I guess I was searching,
Right.
and I didn't know.
Yeah. And I have a couple comments, but first I want to, Marissa also put another comment. Let me put it there for everybody. She says, I have imposter
Okay.
syndrome sometimes, just because I'm not where I want to be in terms of all my goals for myself. So I feel like I can't fully show the potential to people with disabilities unless I've reached it myself. And like,
Okay.
I think that goes
Can I
back to what
address
we were
that?
saying.
Can I
Yeah.
address
Go
that?
ahead. Yeah.
Do you want to address it first? I mean, because I
No,
do
go
want to
ahead.
address that, but I didn't know if you
Yeah.
wanted to
Go
address
for
it
it.
first. Okay, I do want to address that, Marissa. Marissa, you don't have to. You don't have to. That's where you'll go wrong. That's where you'll start coming off as not genuine, or disingenuine. Just live by example. The best leaders just lead by example. You don't tell me you're a leader, or you don't have to have these degrees behind your name and these letters behind your name. Just lead by example. I'm going to choose whether to follow you, or buy into what you got, but that's my choice. The moment you think you can make my choice for me by putting letters behind your name, or speaking a certain way, or having certain degrees, then that's where the barriers are in place. Now, there are people out there that require that. I get you, but maybe that's not your audience. And don't worry about that being your audience. There's plenty of people out there with much more knowledge, if you want to put it that way, that they can follow. The people that will follow you are going to follow you based on your genuineness, and just your ability to say, some things I just don't know. It's okay to say I don't know.
Yeah. I concur 100% on that one. So instead of just repeating everything that you said, I'll give an example, right? As much as I would like to take credit for it, it's not mine. I don't remember where I heard it, but I heard it. Have you ever seen videos or pictures of the beach when all the sea turtles are trying to go? And there's like hundreds of them, thousands of them, and somebody one time saw somebody taking a couple of them and putting them in the water. And the person says, "Well, dude, what are you doing, man? Like, you can't help all. There's so many of them, you'll never get to them. You won't even make a difference." And he'll pick up one and says, "To this one, I'm making a difference." And that's a grandiose way of putting it. But you're not trying to be everything to
Yeah.
everybody. If there's even one person that you're a
Right.
little bit further on in the road, or you say it in a different way, or
Right.
whatever it might be, and you help them, that's what it's all about. That's what it's for. You're not trying to save everybody. You're not trying to be everything to everybody. And that's where the comparing thing comes into play. You can't compare yourself with where you're at versus somebody who's accomplished whatever else that you think you should be. It doesn't matter. That's where they're at on their journey. That's not where you're at on your journey. And I think that was a
Hmm.
problem with a lot of people trying to have imposter syndrome. Essentially, is they're not looking at where they're at. They're looking at where they think they should be. And that's the problem is other people aren't judging you where you should be. They're just thankful that you're where you're at and you're able to help them and talk to them.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the point, right? I mean, that's part of the whole imposter thing is I think we go back to comparison, and comparison's a real problem. But the other thing I've noticed, and in reading about this, it seems like a lot of creative people suffer from this. And I assume that's because creativity is very subjective for a lot of people. But I could not help but to think of my wife, right? And I can say this because she's never going to watch this. So, my wife, and you can attest this because you've seen it. She is probably the most creative person I've ever seen in my life. The things that this woman can do with arts, crafts, paint, whatever it might be, at ease, like not even thinking about it, she could just bust it out. She has an eye for it. She has a talent. She has a knack for it. She's just naturally good at it. She questions it all the time. Like she never thinks that it's good. She never thinks that it's worthwhile.
Oh, really?
She always thinks that it's imperfect and there's something else needed to be done. And no matter how many accolades that she gets, right? When she goes to her job, she gets them both personally and professionally, right? So professionally, she's an optometry assistant, or I don't know the exact title, but there's moments where she's in charge of like taking pictures of people's eyeballs. And there's certain, I don't know, there's a skill set to it apparently, to where, you know, you really got to be able to see it to get it right. And she's actually taken pictures that have been sent and forwarded to like classes where they're using it to teach. Like it happened at least 2 or 3 times that's happened. And every time she comes home and tells me, and she's so shocked and she's so like, I'm like, but why? Like, how many times does this have to happen before you realize like you're just really good at it? And then personally, everybody at work has asked her at one point or another to do something for them, to make, like, she does these things called diaper cakes, which I've never heard of prior to her. Apparently it's just, I don't know, a bunch of diapers put, I don't know. And I'm not even going to try to explain it. But apparently they're not easy to do. And if you do them, you know, they're not easy to make look amazing. She's drawn pictures. She's done, I don't know, countless things that people at work have asked her to do and they paid her for. And yet still to this day, no matter how many times people line up, she still looks at it as, you know, I don't know, it's okay. Like, but it's not. So I think she probably would consider herself suffering from imposter syndrome. I know I would. And from as a loved one's perspective, it sucks for me to watch because it breaks my heart to think that she doesn't realize how great she is. You know, I think there's a fine line between being, you know, having humility versus just really not understanding what kind of gift you have, right? And I think from her perspective, because she is so creative, she's constantly looking at the flaws, not looking at the bigger picture, because she's comparing what she thinks it should be or what she sees others do, and she's not seeing the definition of her own work. And I think it, you know, it sucks to see, but I think that's a classic example, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a really great example. Actually, it's very different than we were going with it, because we were going more in the line, or at least we went into detail in relation to the self-esteem ones that maybe know that they've done some poor behavior in the past, therefore they don't deserve it, or they've done some things privately so they know they don't deserve it. In her case, it's just that comparison, like you said, it's a comparison towards other people's work and how they view and look at that other work compared to themselves. They're very self-critical, and self-criticism is everybody can relate to that. I think most people at least can relate to self-criticism. I mean, you see what you did. In other words, like if you painted something, you see the flaws in that painting, but other people, they don't see that flaw. Once you point it out to me, I can't help but see it every time I look at it. Like once you point it out to me, like you should never point out to me a flaw, because then I see it every single time. And many times I'm okay with flaws. I like the imperfections and things, actually. That's why I like saltillo tile. You know what saltillo tile is, right? What we call Mexican tile. Okay, so it's that reddish brown, yellowish tile that people have sometimes. You see it at Mexican restaurants. You see it in different outdoor patios. You know, it's that imperfect tile. It's imperfectly shaped sometimes. It sometimes even has like animal footprints in it. It's imperfectly covered. It never has the same color twice. You know, I like that. It's what makes it unique. What makes it cool. But I also like antiques instead of newer things. I like older things. I like things that have a story attached to it. I like things that have a wear and tear attached to it. And maybe that says something about who I am and what kind of people I like. I like the imperfect people. I like your flaws. I like your oddities. I like your wear and tear. I think that's what makes you unique to you. I think we can all be brand new babies, but babies don't interest me. I got to be honest with you. Babies just don't interest me. They all look the same, ugly. I'm sorry. They just look like little rats. They look like they require too much care that I don't want to give. Right. They poop and pee and all that. Now, I can see the cuteness. Like when you say it's cute, yeah, it's cute and it's lovely and all that stuff. But as far as like, I'm not a baby person, but I'm not saying I don't like your baby. It's just I don't want to take your baby home. But now once your baby becomes like a toddler, starts running around, having a little bit of personality and attitude and saying really funny things. Oh, I am so interested in your kid now. I think it's really cool. I love seeing the little personality come out. I love hearing the little thing. Kids say the darndest things kind of thing. I love that.
Right.
And so I think as adults, that's who we are. We're saying the darndest things, even in adulthood. It's just not as cute to a lot of people, because you're not really supposed to say that now. You're supposed to know better and all that other stuff. But to someone like me, I like to appreciate that you're not perfect, but you have something to offer. And I want to go back to something that it looks like Marissa posted a little early on. So I want to address this comment right here. And it's that I've heard a few times in courses I've taken, you can help someone as long as you're just a few steps ahead, which helped a lot to hear is what Marissa said on Facebook Live. Well, I want to address that. I also think that I've learned a lot. And so tell me if you can relate to this, Trinity. I've learned a lot from people who may not have been ahead, who may have actually had a few steps back than where I thought I was on my path. And the reason being is they taught me that should I not continue to grow, or if I should regress back to some of my old ways of thinking or behavior patterns, that's where I'm going to be. I'm going to be right back there. So I find the newcomer equally as inspiring as the old wise one. Everyone to me can be inspiring. It's just that maybe you pull something a little bit differently from that. Not that I feel better than, but just that I know that way of thinking is not where I want to be. Therefore, it may inspire me to move forward. As a wise person is somewhere where I do want to be. And if I keep working towards it, maybe I'll get there. But it allows me to be present in the moment of where I am in my growth. I may not be all the way there and I may not be all the way back. I'm somewhere in the middle, and most of us are. Most of us are somewhere in the middle. Now, Trinity and I joke a lot that somewhere around there is the person that is the worst and is the least successful and is the least of everything. But hopefully we're not that person. And we know that person doesn't have internet or Wi-Fi, so that person will never hear or see our programs, because remember, they're the worst of the worst. So they'll never experience it. But you're not it typically.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the most classic example of that is my kids. I'm supposed to be the authority and leading them and teaching them and everything else. I think I've learned more from them than they've learned from me. Just watching them interact and watching them grow and watching them learn has taught me so much more than I think I've ever taught them. And that's the thing in life, man, and is we're going to learn from people who are both further along the path than we are and not as far. Like, we're going to learn both. Because oftentimes in the ones who aren't as far down the path, that's where we get to see some of our own insecurities or see some of our own shortcomings. And Marissa just added another comment that says, a lot of people with disabilities who complain and hate on others really inspire me not to be like that and to be grateful for the life I have. And that's an example of somebody who might not be as far along the path as you, but you learn something from them. But I do, off the top of my head, I can think of a few more people.
Or on a different path. Instead of not far along the same path. Can I say it? Just like maybe a different path, and that's their deal.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that I have other people in my life. I'm not going to mention any names at the moment, obviously, because I think some of them might actually be watching. But there are a lot of people who do look at once again, it's the comparing, right? Comparison is the thief of joy. And so they're comparing where they think they should be or their own accolades versus other people's accolades. And maybe they deserve it, maybe they don't, kind of a thing. So I think we collectively as a person, we would do well to really take an objective look sometimes at how much we have accomplished, right? Like, if you're alive and you're sitting, I hate to go all the way back down to the nitty gritty, but you've said before in a joking way, but it is true. If you're alive and you're listening to this today, congratulations. You know what I mean? You've been successful. You've made it through life. Life is hard. There's a lot of things out there that want to kill you. And that's taking it down to the most basic baseline thing. But we all have things that we've accomplished, right? Like, don't get so caught up comparing your shortcomings to other people's that you forget where you've come.
Right.
We've all accomplished things. Have we all won like the Nobel Prize? Have we all become the president of, our, I was going to say United States, but I know other people who listen to this aren't from the United States,
Right.
but, are you the, I don't know, the valedictorian? Are you whatever this top tier is? Maybe not, but that doesn't mean you haven't accomplished anything. That doesn't mean you haven't created the ripple in your own world. That's you've achieved something that has inspired somebody else or improved your life or improved the
Right.
quality of life of others around you. And so I think that's the thing is we get so focused sometimes on what we're not that we forget what we are. Like we've done a
Right.
lot, each and every single one of us. I don't know everybody individually, obviously, but I guarantee you there's things in your life that you'd be proud of if we really started to kind of take a deep dive. And I think that we should spend more time focusing on the things that we're proud of and build on that as opposed to sitting around being upset or self-conscious about the things that we're not. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, everything. I feel like if you are listening to this or watching this, you are a tremendous success because just like Trinity said, there's so many things out there that can incarcerate or kill you. There's a million things out there that incarcerate and kill you, and so many people don't even get out of the youth stage of life. They just don't even get out of childhood, or put it this way: you were already the strongest, fastest swimmer. You made it to the egg,
Exactly.
and you made it, and you became a human being. First of all, that accomplishment was probably your largest accomplishment we cannot beat. I will never be in the type of competitive deal that I was at that stage of life. Now, you may not call it life, but say that to me when I was swimming. I made it to life. And then throughout the life of not jumping off too high of a structure, even though I've jumped off of structures or not aimed weapons directly at my head and pulled the trigger, even though I've aimed them in other places, even though there's a lot of sharp objects around, and I may have gotten cuts, but never stabbed to death. There's a lot of electricity. I've always been around electricity, so maybe most of you have, and yet I'm still alive to this day, even though I put my finger in a strobe light one time and knocked myself out. There's a lot of things that can incarcerate and kill you, and yet you're not either incarcerated or dead. And those that you're incarcerated, at least you're not dead, because if you're incarcerated, then you have done things to kill you, and yet you're still alive. So the point is that we love to focus on all, the one or two negative actions in our life that everybody points out, right? There's people out there that unfortunately live their entire life identified by some of their negative decisions rather than the millions of good decisions that you made in a day. All the streets that you've crossed, you didn't get hit by a car, all the crosswalks that you've done. And you don't focus on all those good decisions, but you've made them. You made them. You would not be alive today if you didn't make them. And so we have to focus on that stuff because we have to be inspired by ourselves more than anyone else. I know that other people inspire you, but apparently you're comparing yourself to those other people. So you're not even allowing that to inspire you. You're comparing yourself to their success or their good looks or whatever it is about them that you're comparing yourself to. And then therefore you're feeling bad about yourself because you're constantly comparing yourself to people that you're not measuring up to, in your opinion, instead of looking at all the people on the other side. We can't all be Michael Jordan. Like we mentioned Michael Jordan once in this broadcast, so let's mention him again. We can't all be Michael Jordan. So if you're comparing yourself to be a good basketball player based on Michael Jordan, no, now you suck. But if you're comparing your basketball skills to me, you're phenomenal. You're awesome. So this is how we must live our life. We must live our life based on our own personal victories, not the victories of others, unless you're using the victories of others to inspire you. But again, you, my friend, are the most inspirational person to you. And I'll end it with this. My biggest hero in my life, I know it's not cool to say it maybe, but I've had lots of heroes and I've had a lot of mentors, but my biggest mentor and hero is me at 19 years old, because I know what I did at 19 years old to give me the beautiful life that I have now. I thank my 19-year-old self forever. That is the person I look most up to. That is the person I praise most for my successes, is 19-year-old me. That person was so messed up and so psychologically hurt and feeling so broken and wounded. But that person made a certain decisions that were pinnacle and that were very instrumental in where I am today. So could I ever go back to that 19-year-old self and says, man, you just don't know how inspirational you were and how great you were? No, that person will never get it. I can't do it. But I can look at the 19-year-old self within me instead of identifying as that loser 19-year-old self that I felt like no, I can go into my own psyche and say, thank you very much for what you are. You are of value. And I've made everything that you did a tremendous amount of value. Thank you. And that's the best I can do.
Yeah. And while you were talking, Gabriella put a comment on, was it Facebook? She said, I'm going to put it up on the screen here. She says,
Okay.
I feel this way, even with parenting. I'm so hard on myself for not doing it the way I think I should. And I have an amazing kid. It sometimes just kills my spirit that I don't rejoice in my success. Let me tell you,
Absolutely.
man, I don't think there's a good parent alive that has not at some point stopped and questioned, am I doing good enough? Could I be doing better or whatever? And what I'll say to that is welcome to the club. We all think that way. The fact that you think that way tells me you're a good parent, because a not good parent doesn't care about what harm they may or may not be doing to their kids. Are you perfect? I don't know you, but I'm gonna tell you right now, no, you're not. Am I perfect? Nope. Is Louis perfect? Nope. We're all doing the best we can. We learn from our mistakes. When we see things out there that we think are beneficial, we do our best to come home and apply them. Are they always going to look exactly the way that the other person's did? Of course not. I'm not them.
Yeah.
I don't have their kids. I don't have their background. I don't have their situation, their status. I don't have any of that. So I'm gonna take what I liked, and I'm gonna make it my own. I'm going to adapt it to my lifestyle and my kids' lifestyle and make it work. And at the end of the day, I'm gonna do the best I can. And I've never claimed to be perfect, and so therefore I'm not going to disappoint anybody when they find out that I'm not. I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to give my kids the love, dignity, and respect. I make sure that when I do talk to my kids, be it accolades or even discipline for that matter, I always try to come from a place of love. I don't come from a place of power. I don't come from a place of anger or whatever. I try to come from love. Now, that does it always translate the way I'd want it to? Absolutely not. But I know deep down in my heart I'm coming from a place of love, and that helps me sleep at night. Do I think I'm the best parent? Nope. Absolutely not. But that's also why I've surrounded myself with people who I think are good parents. So, I can learn from them. I can also have my current things reiterated through them. So I surround myself with people who I think are on that path. And do I compare? No, but I learn and I share what I've learned. Gabriella, welcome to the club, girl. We all feel that way. The other thing I will say that I think needs to be said in this whole discussion here. So in part of the Eightfold Path, right? The third one, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've had to teach those, but it's right speech. And the funny part with right speech is I say everything, or I don't say it, but I repeat it. Everything that's communicated needs to be truthful and useful. And what that means is truthful, pay special attention that it's not just your truth, right? Truth is 360. So it's got to be truthful, and there's no or, it's and useful. Meaning, like back when I was doing the fitness stuff, if I had a client who did the worst burpee I've ever seen in my entire life, it might be truthful. Is it useful to tell that person, hey, that's the worst burpee I've ever seen? Probably not. It's not going to motivate them. It's not going to make them feel good about anything. So therefore, you don't say it. And for the most part, people comprehend this, and they don't really struggle too much with it, right? They sometimes struggle with applying it. They don't struggle very much in understanding it. The one part, though, the X factor that always messes people up, that causes me to give homework, is they don't realize that applies to you, right? Not just to other people, but talking to yourself. It's got to be truthful. It's got to be useful. And what I mean by that is how many times, and if you're listening to this, feel free to comment, how many times have you motivated yourself by saying things like, oh, I'm so stupid, or oh, I can't believe I got that wrong. I'm an idiot. I shouldn't have done that. Like just completely berating yourself. I've done it. Everybody I know has done it. Would you ever say that to a loved one? Right? If like we're talking about children, right? If one of your little kids, like a little 8-year-old kid comes to you and says, I really messed up, would you really berate them and yell at them and tell, yeah, you really are stupid. What's wrong? You would never in a million years, because inherently it's not useful. It's not going to help them. It's going to make them feel horrible. So then why do we do it to ourselves? So that's the homework I always give everybody. And I'm going to give it to you if you're watching this or listening to this. Your homework for this week: do not motivate yourself in a way that you would not motivate a loved one. Stop talking to yourself in a way that you would never talk to that little kid or whatever it is that looks up to you and cares for you. Stop talking to yourself like that and see what happens. You might be surprised at the outcome. So you got any?
Are you telling my dad that Yeah, are you telling my dad that he was wrong by motivating me by calling me a stupid idiot?
But he also
Stupid
he
idiot.
matched that with love too, though. So I met your
Yeah,
father. Your father's an
yeah,
amazing man. So
yeah, but he still calls me a stupid idiot to this day. Nah, listen, I thought that was great stuff what you give it. On top of that, whatever self talk is important. You know what I mean? And
yeah, man.
like you said, we've all done it. We've all said some negative things about ourselves, but it's important to motivate ourselves. How we speak to ourselves is definitely the most important thing in this whole deal. I don't care what
Yep.
you're recovering from or what you're dealing with. What you say to yourself and how you view yourself is important. It's the corny stuff that works, right? Like we used to
Yep.
joke about that Stuart Smalley stuff, right? That says, "I love myself," or "I'm a good person." How does that go?
You're
That
good
Stuart
enough.
Smalley,
You're strong enough, and doggone it, people like you.
right, right. I think that's so hilarious because I mean, equally, yeah, there's people that don't like you, and to some people you're not good enough, and to some people you're not smart enough. But it's like it's not what you are to them; it's what you are to yourself. And here's
Yep.
what I would tell you about the parenting, Gabriela, is that for yourself, the fact that like Trinity says, that you're even saying it, that you're even thinking it, that is what makes you a good person. And this is what I love to remind people of, that when you're a good person and a loving person or a smart person, it's going to come across no matter what you try to be. It's just like if you're a cool person, you're going to be cool even when you're acting dorky and geeky. Right. But if you're dorky and geeky, no matter how cool you try to be, look, dude, we all see the geek and dorky in you. So just please stop pretending.
Own
So
it,
if
man.
you're a bad person, no matter how, yeah, just own it. So if you're a bad person, that's going to come across no matter what, and there's nothing you can do to be fake about it. We know that you're a horrible person, and it comes across, and but there's very few of those, right? Whereas if you're a good person and you're a loving person, you're going to make your errors and say the wrong things to kids sometimes, and behave improperly in front of your kids sometimes, and maybe gives them some poor direction sometimes. But because you're such a good, kind-hearted person, they have felt that their entire life. They have studied you more than anybody else. They have
Yeah.
felt the inside of you in such a deeper way, and they read through the spirit of who you are in such a deeper way, that it wasn't your words, and it wasn't so much of what you think it was. It was that internal spiritual connection that they have with you that has been guiding them and propelling them forward. So once you're a good person, you couldn't fake the funk, man. Doesn't matter. They saw the goodness, they felt the goodness, and that's why you have good kids, even through all of our errors, right? That's why we have good kids, because there's no way that I was the perfect parent. And they like to point out some of the comments that I've made that was probably the wrong comments to make. I mean, I think my Zoe, I'll expose myself. My little Zoe loves to tell people that one time I told her I'd love to shoot her in the face. Yeah, I said that. It was not a good moment. It was not a good moment.
Oh
I
god.
laugh. We laugh about it now, and it was not a forgivable moment. She constantly, you said you were going to shoot me in the face. Yeah, I did, because I knew that I wasn't, and I knew that I couldn't hit her. And boy, did I want to hit her that day. I know that I wanted to hit her that day, but I had to find another skill set, and I had to dig deep in that toolbox to find another skill.
Yeah.
But yeah, I told her that. Yeah,
Yeah. I
that was
feel you.
not a
There's
good
been
parenting moment, and yet I have a good kid.
yeah, I've got plenty of non-skillful parenting moments, but I agree.
Right.
Overall, I think nobody would argue that my kids aren't good kids, man. I've never strived for perfection as far as that's concerned. I do the best I can.
Right.
I'm going to make
Right.
mistakes like
Right.
everybody else, but at the end of the day, as long as the end result is what we all want it to be, we're good, man.
Right.
And Gabriella said I needed this homework, so hopefully it helps you. And then Marissa said self-talk is a great topic. I agree. I don't know. We'd
Yep.
have to look
Yep.
into that,
I
see if
saw
we
that.
could expand on it. But
Well,
anyway,
here's what I'd like to do. Yeah, I do have a final word. I'd like to promise that on the next Couch Live, that's exactly what we'll do, self talk, because that does relate a lot to addiction recovery, and I think we can talk about it in a way that helps addiction recovery, but also maybe some Dharma Time ish way of doing it. I think Trinity's input would be valuable in that conversation. So we didn't know what we were going to do this Monday anyway, or next coming up Monday. On the Couch Live. So let's do it on Self-Talk Journey, and that way we fulfill the need of the request of Marissa and in her opinion.
yeah, for sure. And
Mhm.
Monday nights on Facebook and YouTube, you can catch it
Mhm.
live. And then afterwards, if you want to catch the podcast version of it, if you're listening to this right now on Dharma Time, then you can very
Right.
easily also listen on Dope and Dharma. And Dope and
Right.
Dharma, once again, has every show that we do, regardless of the topic. So
Right.
on Monday, you heard it here first, kids. Next Monday will be self-talk on the couch live version of Dharma Time. So
Right.
is that your final
Right. Now,
thoughts? You got more?
no, on Dharma Time.
Did I
The
say
Couch
Dharma
Live.
Time?
The Couch
on
Live
Dope and
version of
Dharma.
Dharma Time. You said
There
Dope
you
and
go.
Dharma.
There you go.
But that's okay. We're just
I'm
getting
old,
used to
man.
this
I had a
ourselves.
thing.
And you know what?
I had a thing.
You had a thing. I had a thing. So you still have your thing, and I still have two little
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So what we'd like to say is also we need some topics for Friday's show of Dope and Dharma. In other words, where we cover things that are either sports or political or social in nature. And so that's Friday's Dharma Time. I know we'll be talking about the Tom Brady situation on Friday at least. So that we could throw Tom Brady in there because anytime Trinity and I can talk football, we do. So that'll be on Dope and Dharma on Friday, and we'll add some more things. So if you guys know of any other social or political topics that we could talk about on Friday, please send those in to us. You could follow me at the Dope Doctor. You could follow him at the Dharma Guy. We're all over social media that way. You could send us either a private message or a message through any of those channels, so we know what we can talk about every week. Your input is important. We like to talk about things that you guys want to talk about. You're the one here spending time with us, and since you're the one here spending time with us, you're just as valuable as us. So let's get together on this and figure out what we discuss. And thank you all very much for all your participation today. That's all I have to say. And I got some pernil waiting for me. Some really good pernil, man.
I don't even know what that is.
You know what that is, Trinity?
Nope.
Pernil
Nope,
y
not at all.
arroz con gandules. It's Puerto Rican food. I got some good Puerto Rican food that we got catered in today at the studio. So too bad you're not here, Trinity, and you're still spending time in your daughter's room rather than coming out here. So
yeah, I know, right? Although it's clean today, which is a nice plus.
Right.
Anyways, yeah, I don't really have anything else to add to that, other than just imposter syndrome. Just understand, man, your worth. If other people are giving you accolades and rewards, don't question it. Just be thankful for it, because as easily as they came, they could also go. Right? We could all lose those accolades tomorrow. So, like he said, if somebody wants to overpay you, or if somebody wants to over congratulate you, let them. Be thankful.
Yeah.
Like that feels
Yeah.
good. It's better than the opposite. So, I think that's all I got for today. Appreciate y'all. Make sure you tune in, share this, like all those fun things. But that's all we got. So till next time, now that you know better, do better. Peace.